Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Schmelter. I'm a UX designer here at Sparkbox, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you to talk about design system foundations. To kick things off, let's explain what we mean by that. When we refer to a strong design system foundation, we're referring to clarity and alignment. And we break this up into three areas: roles and communication, processes, and workspace organization. Now, we're going to dive into each of these in more detail. But before we do, let's discuss why a strong foundation is so important. And to do this, we're going to use a house as our metaphor. Now, if you ask any 5-year-old to draw you a house, they'll likely start with two sturdy walls, followed by a roof, a door, some windows, a chimney with a roaring fire, and finally, some trees. And there you have a house. But I've yet to see a 5-year-old add this essential part of the house, which is, you guessed it, the foundation. Because you don't see the foundation, but that doesn't mean it isn't very important. So let's say you're a construction manager building a house for some homeowners who are very eager to see some progress on their dream home. You could start with the walls, followed by the roof, etc., and your clients would be thrilled with how fast their house is coming together. Until, of course, the soil beneath the house shifts, causing cracks in the walls, which you rush to fix, and your clients are still happy. But the weakened walls can't quite support that sturdy roof you've added, and it starts to sag. So you add support braces to the roof. Then a window breaks, and a door doesn't open. Each of these things you can fix individually, but without the foundation in place, the rest of the structure will continue to have problems. But the foundation of a home takes time. And during that time, it doesn't look like much is being done, to the untrained eye at least. The same is true for your design system. Taking the time to develop clarity and alignment in these three areas takes time. And during that time, it may look like things are proceeding slowly. What we'll cover here will help you more than make up for that time and build a better and stronger design system in the process. And if you've already started or have a design system in place, don't worry. Unlike a house, it's not too late to implement these strategies. So let's dive into roles and communications. And we're going to cover defining team roles, communication platforms and their uses, and establishing clear roadmaps and timelines. Every team is unique, and creating clear roles and responsibilities minimizes confusion and anxiety while enhancing trust, purpose, and efficiency. So here's a quick outline you can follow. Identify key players and their roles on the team. Clearly outline responsibilities for each team member. Establish accountability and ownership over different parts of the project. And finally, create a shared document available to all team members. Doing this creates a sense of a unified team working together toward a common goal. So now let's talk about communication platforms. When it comes to communication platforms, we can all agree that you have plenty of choices. Now you have chat platforms like Slack and Teamwork. Then there's project management tools like Jira and Trello, tools-based communication programs like Storybook, Figma, and GitHub, collaboration software like Google Drive and Confluence, and of course, plenty of popular email platforms. Now, obviously, no one's going to use all of these, but different teams benefit from different platforms. So aligning on what's right for you is important. But deciding on the platforms is just the beginning. Let's say your team has decided to use these platforms. Now, Slack, for example, is an excellent tool for sharing ideas, brainstorming solutions, check-ins and e-scrums, coordinating meetings, notifying others of a status change, and even screen sharing. But of course, Jira is also a great tool for check-ins and e-scrums. And Figma is a great way to brainstorm solutions. Storybook and GitHub are excellent tools for notifying others of status change. Confluence is great for sharing ideas. Gmail does a great job of helping you to coordinate meetings. So how will your team use each tool? Aligning on this helps to build that strong foundation. Next is roadmaps and timelines. A roadmap is a high-level view of the whole project, broken up into raw timeframes, also known as horizons, such as now, next, and later. Each time frame will have a set of goals or themes. And here are some basic examples that you can go off of. A project timeline, on the other hand, is a comprehensive outline of the tasks needed to accomplish a specific roadmap goal. In this case, understanding user needs. This includes the scope, outlining what will be done, tasks, listing out how the scope will be accomplished, the team members responsible for each task, and of course, the deadline. When team members lose sight of a system's roadmap and timeline, it's easy to get lost chasing objectives that don't serve the overall goals. Roadmaps and timelines visible to everyone helps the team align on the goals of a system, what the system will influence, what team members can expect, and where their contributions benefit the overall goals. So that wraps up roles and communication. Moving on to processes, and we'll cover reviews, approvals, documentation, and collaboration. There are a lot of moving pieces when it comes to the design system, and clarity and alignment on these is very important. So let's start with reviews. In our experience, we have found success when we have solid answers to the following questions. Who is responsible for reviewing each type of work? What is the review criteria? Who communicates timing and status? What are the review stages? Who does a review get escalated to if there's confusion or disagreement? And what steps should be taken after a review is complete? And reviews, of course, lead to approval. And alignment here is very important as well. Make sure you define what done is. Document what steps need to be taken to reach approval. And finally, what steps are taken after approval. Here's a simple example of a definition of done for a Figma component. It covers what a component needs to account for, the steps it needs to be taken before approval, and what happens after approval. You'll notice several of the terms are underlined, indicating links to more detailed documentation to references needed. Now, this is just an example. Take time to define the definition of done for each type of element in your design system. So let's go to documentation. Clear and consistent documentation is critical to an efficient workflow, both during the creation and usage of that documentation. So here are a few questions to consider. Who will be reading this documentation? Think about the technical expertise of your audience, how familiar your readers will be with design patterns and components, as well as what are the different roles and teams that your documentation will have to accommodate. Then, what information is most important? What are the specific problems or tasks being addressed? How much detail is needed for your specific audience? And what information should be prioritized for quick reference and in-depth understanding? And finally, how will new users find this documentation? What are the entry points or search terms? How will this be integrated into your existing workflows and tools, as well as how will the navigation be structured for your users? And the final process topic is collaboration. Now, collaboration is important in every aspect of a project, but let's focus here on collaboration between design and development. And what better way to demonstrate this than using some super cliche stock photography? Look at those two. Are they collaborating or what? Typically, people think of collaboration between design development as a handoff, passing the baton from design to development. Then people wonder why there's friction between design and development so often. Well, maybe not that much friction, but that's a little better. You get the idea, like some friction. Stock photography isn't exactly known for its subtlety. Rather than a handoff, we approach this as a collaborative process of a single team from the start all the way through to a successful implementation. See how much happier they are? So how does this relate back to a design system foundation? Setting up and aligning on clear expectations from the start will help to streamline your workflow and optimize your productivity. Think about who should collaborate on different types of solution and what that collaboration looks like. My colleague Osman will provide some excellent insight a little later in the UnConference on this. So let's move on to workplace setup. And here we're going to cover 4 aspects to workplace setup for your design system foundation. We have research, insight, flexibility, and scalability. Starting with research. There are a ton of great resources to reference. And the one thing they all have in common is that they approach their organization differently. Taking the time to really dig into these different approaches as a team will help you align on the best setup for your workspace. Next is insight, specifically insight from all team members. This will create a workspace that serves everyone's needs, leverages different perspectives and expertise, and encourages ownership and buy-in. No matter what role or experience a team member has, their input has a great deal of value. And in addition to the benefits shown here, utilizing different perspectives when building your foundation will also streamline adoption at a later date. So the next is building for flexibility. And the fact is, we can't see the future. As disappointing as it is, Back to the Future got it wrong. There are no flying cars, and more importantly, there are no hoverboards, and I still haven't gotten over that. And if they can't predict the future, how can we expect to? So in setting up the foundation for your system, we have found success when we anticipate change from the beginning. We use a modular system, enabling easy updates and adjustments, and also building in regular reviews to identify needed changes as early as possible. And that brings us to scalability. There will always be additions and enhancements to a design system. Building some essential elements into the foundation of the system will go a long way to streamlining future efforts. The first tip is easy. Plan for growth from the start. A design system is a living entity that should be built to grow with the needs of the company or product it supports. Your system should be built to smoothly accommodate new components, requirements, tokens, etc. Next is standardized naming. Naming that is clear and consistent makes the system easy to maintain, easy to understand, easy to build on, and easy to onboard new team members. My colleague Jelly will dive deeper into unified terminology in the next talk, but for the purposes of this discussion, whether it's case conventions such as Pascal case, camel case, underscore case, etc., or naming structure such as organizing by characteristic, object, or theme. The most important thing is that the entire team is aligned, because if some Figma tokens are named one way and other tokens are named another, well, you know what that leads to, and you don't want that. And finally, documentation. Now we all know that documentation is important, but if everyone's just doing their own thing, it's not going to work for everyone. Align on who is responsible for updating documentation. When should it be updated? What is the process for releasing updated documentation? How will the team be notified of the updates? Where will the log of updates be found, and how will it be formatted? This might be the last item we're discussing in regards to scalability, but it's certainly not the least important. Documentation often starts strong, but can lose momentum as time goes on. And without clear and aligned upon procedures, it's easy to overlook, which could lead to, well, you get the idea. Now, I know what we talked about in the beginning was what if you already have a design system in place? And as I mentioned, I have good news here. If you already have one in place, it does not mean that it is time to start over. It also doesn't mean that all the work you've done has been lost, or you have to take some major step backward. And maybe most importantly, it also doesn't mean that it's not worth building a strong foundation at this point, whatever point you're at. What it does mean is that we recommend that it may be time to take a pause. Assess how the work you've done can be adapted to fit a stronger foundation. Any time that you spend now while pausing will be made up many times over while moving forward. and it's never too late to start building a strong foundation. So, in conclusion, building a strong foundation based on clarity and alignment will improve efficiency and productivity, reduce miscommunication and conflicts, streamline decision-making process, align the entire team with overall goals, and increase team morale and engagement. In short, you can change this into this. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy building.